Previously on A Love That Lingered, the manor had been bustling with preparations for Grace's 16th birthday, a celebration made brighter by the promise of family and friends. The night before, Oliver had found Grace fast asleep on a lounge in the drawing room and fetched Arthur. Without complaint, he had lifted her into his arms, carrying her to her room, a simple act, but one that lingered in both their hearts. This is episode 13, The Day of Dancing. Morning sunlight spilled like gold through the tall windows of the Caldwell Manor, spilling across the polished floors and freshly dusted banisters. The scent of baked bread and sugared confections drifted through the halls, carried by the warm hum of the kitchen below. Grace awoke to the rustle of skirts and the soft call of her name from the maids who came to help her prepare. Today was her birthday, her 16th year. And though she was accustomed to smaller gatherings at the manor, today would be different. Her family would be arriving by carriage before noon, and with them, Martha's new husband, Thomas, whom Grace had never met. She had spent weeks wondering what kind of man her sister had chosen. As she dressed in a gown the color of rosewater, laced with delicate embroidery along the sleeves, she thought of how different life felt since coming to the manor. Arthur's mother had been a quiet but steady presence during the planning, guiding choices with a smile and the occasional gentle correction. Arthur himself had seemed more at ease these past weeks, less haunted by the shadows of duty, and more willing to join in conversation. The drawing room had been transformed overnight, with ribbons in soft gold and ivory trailing from the high beams, and tables arranged for cake, music, and dancing. A fire crackled in the hearth despite the mild weather, adding a glow to the air that felt almost like home. By mid-morning, the sound of carriage wheels on the gravel drive sent Grace hurrying to the front hall. Her heart beat faster, not just from excitement, but from something softer, something like longing. She hadn't seen her parents or sisters since leaving home, and the sight of them would be both comforting and a reminder of the life she'd left behind. The front doors opened to the familiar voice of Lord Everley calling her name. Grace darted forward, laughter spilling from her lips as she was swept into her father's embrace. Lady Everley followed, regal as ever, though her eyes softened at the sight of her youngest. Martha came next, radiant in a new gown, her arm linked with a tall man whose dark hair and kind eyes immediately caught Grace's attention. Thomas bowed politely before offering his hand. "An honor, Miss Grace. Your sister has told me much about you." "And I about you," Grace replied, curtsying with a grin. "I hope she has not exaggerated too greatly." Sophia swept in behind them, teasing that Martha had spoken more of Thomas than of her own family in her last letters. The sisters embraced, their voices weaving together in the familiar rhythm of shared childhoods. Arthur emerged from his study, his posture straight but his eyes warmer than usual. He greeted each guest in turn, his handshake firm when meeting Thomas. Lady Caldwell, who had been overseeing the arrival of refreshments, soon joined them, ushering everyone towards the drawing room where the celebration began in earnest. Laughter echoed through the halls as music played from a small string quartet. Plates of sugared pastries disappeared almost as quickly as they were served. Grace danced first with her father, his steps confident despite his age, before Arthur took her hand. His touch was careful, his gaze lingering longer than it should have. "You look remarkable today," he murmured as they moved in time with the music. Grace's cheeks warmed. "As do you," she replied, though her voice was lighter, teasing. Later, Oliver appeared at her side, offering a mock bow before sweeping her into the next song. His grin was boyish, his steps quick enough to draw a few surprised laughs from her. "You dance far better than Arthur," she teased, and Oliver leaned in to whisper, "Don't tell him that. He'll brood about it for days." When the hour turned to late afternoon, the piano in the corner drew everyone's attention. Arthur seated himself, adjusting the cuffs of his coat before letting his fingers glide over the keys. The melody was soft at first, almost hesitant, before blossoming into something rich and full, filling the air like sunlight through glass. Grace sat closest, her hands folded in her lap, unable to take her eyes off him. She didn't know if the song had a name, but she knew it was for her. As the last note faded, Arthur's gaze met hers across the quiet room. There was no mistaking the meaning in his eyes. It was a song meant not just to honor her birthday, but to speak of something unspoken between them. Grace felt a strange tightness in her chest, the kind that came when happiness carried a weight all its own. She was surrounded by family, by laughter and light, and yet something in that look told her that this day, this feeling, would be one she would think of often in the years to come. When the dancing resumed, she found herself drifting between partners, her father Oliver and once more Arthur. Between each turn, she caught glimpses of her sisters, speaking warmly with Arthur's mother, of Thomas, fitting in easily with the household's easy chatter. It was as though the manor had opened itself entirely, becoming part of her family as much as she was now part of theirs. As the evening wound down and lanterns were lit in the garden, Grace slipped out for a breath of cool air. The night was still, the stars bright above the sloping hills beyond the manor. Arthur joined her, standing at a polite distance. "Did the day meet your expectations?" he asked. Grace smiled softly. It exceeded them. They stood in companionable silence, the warm light from the windows behind them casting their shadows long over the lawn. Neither spoke of the future, but the air between them felt full, of music, of promises unspoken, and of something neither yet dared name. Somewhere inside, Oliver's voice called her back to the celebration. But for a moment longer, she stayed, letting the night and Arthur's quiet presence wrap around her like the softest of threads.